Hi, I'm Mike of mikesbread.com and sourdoughhome.com, and if you've been around the webpage much, you know I try to get as much mileage out of everything I do as possible. I've been asked to make a Mexican-style bread, which I've never done before, for communion tomorrow at church. So I'm going to use this opportunity to show how I convert a recipe from volume measurement to weight measurement, and also do a video which I've been asked to do of how to knead bread. So let's get after it. Now, the reason I like to convert from volume to weight measurements is because weight measurements are more consistent, more accurate, more repeatable, and allow you to change the recipe more easily. The recipe calls for 1 cup of water, which works out to 229 grams. When I do the conversion, I write everything down on the recipe sheet and then move on. The next thing it calls for is 1 cup of all-purpose flour. The problem with measuring flour is that it's compressible. When you buy it, it's been settling in the store, and a cup weighs more than a cup that's been sifted. And 1 cup of flour can range from 100 grams to 200 grams. The way to do it, to measure by volume accurately, is to sift the flour and then spoon it into a cup. I've already sifted this flour, so now I'll spoon it in, and then use some sort of scraping exercise, such as a knife, to scrape off the excess. Now I've got a cup. I'll zero the scales. Flour goes in. 130 grams. The next thing the recipe called for was fresh yeast. I don't use fresh yeast. Very few people do. It doesn't sell well in the grocery store, so they tend to not carry it. I checked the SAF webpage. I use SAF yeast, and they told me how to convert from the fresh yeast to instant yeast. About 4 teaspoons should do it, so we'll measure out our 4 teaspoons. Okay, now where's the lid? There it is. And we're looking at 16 grams. So we'll drop this in here. This recipe starts out with a sponge, which is a bit of flour, a bit of water, and a bit of yeast. And this gives the yeast time to get going and really raise things. So we'll stir this together and cover it for an hour. You may notice I had everything in place where I needed it. The French call that mise en place, or something like that. I'm not French either. And it really makes cooking a lot more efficient. I had a distress call from a neighbor earlier today who needed an egg because he needed another egg for cookies. He got to the end of the recipe and realized he had no egg. So there we go. This is smooth but not horribly so. Once the sponge has been mixed together, we'll cover it with some saran wrap and let it sit for about an hour. It should double in size in that hour. Sponges, in addition to getting your yeast going, are a great way to help develop the flavor of any of your breads. The French have a similar technique. They call it a pouliche. We talk about that in the Advanced Baking Pre-Ferments book. And we need to talk about how to handle saran wrap in one of these pages. First of all, I have to figure it out. There we go. Let's set this off the scale. I don't like leaving things on the scales when the scales aren't in use. So we'll see you in an hour.